Right. Hi, my name is Vanessa Refutation, and I'm going to be repeating the claim that rising gas prices makes California healthier economically and environmentally. My opponent's secondary claims were that 1, high gas prices protect the environment and natural resources, 2, that high gas prices help our national and online economies, and 3, that high gas prices help local economies and communities. In response to the first claim that high gas prices protect the environment and natural resources, the evidence uses the claim that due to higher fuel costs, carbon emissions are reduced. The evidence used, which is from the fueleconomy.gov website, is not adequate. It fails to include into the percentage of carbon emissions introduced into the atmosphere as a result of public transit, which inevitably increases when people are not using their cars as their main means of transportation. By excluding this piece of evidence, the information, the data is not fully developed, therefore undermining the claim and partially discrediting the advocate. It shows that their data is manipulated, therefore discrediting her facts. If the researchers were negligent enough to leave out the emissions of public transit, the source cannot be trusted that the information and the rest of the data is accurate. The advocate also claims that the demand for alternative fuels rises. This is true, however, it does not make people go out and spend money on new expensive hybrid cars. This in the long run is more expensive than paying the gas increase. According to automotive.com, the average new full-size hybrid runs for about $45,000, while the average price of a year's worth of gas at the current price is approximately $3,000. People are not going to buy a new car in the hopes of protecting the environment, especially in an economy where increasing gas prices are reason enough for them to change their ways. It is human nature to take the path of least resistance. Therefore, people will cut back on other amenities, not on their transportation. In response to the second claim that high gas prices help our national and online economies, the advocate used the statistic that 57% of our oil is imported. This is used to support the fact that high prices support our national economy. In fact, it does the opposite. It takes away from our national economy because the majority of our money goes overseas. Local companies are stripped of their deals with gas companies, therefore eliminating domestic jobs, in turn hurting our economy. The advocate claims that high gas prices help our online economy, and that by having such high prices, with 57% of our oil being imported, we're supporting other countries rather than our own. They say as well that the demand for renewable fuels reduces the demand on oil, but this is still a dream, not a reality. Until renewable alternatives are made more cost-effective, people will still rely on their gas-guzzling cars. In response to the third claim that high gas prices help our local economy and community, the advocate says that because people, instead of driving to local amenities, they live closer to them. The cost of gas is irrelevant to those who live in areas with close proximities to shopping amenities. However, they choose to live in these locations as a personal preference rather than a factor of reducing gas costs. The evidence used by this claim is also outdated. The web page no longer exists, and the link indicates that the information from the article is from May of 2008. The claim does nothing to advance the argument that high gas prices help the local economy. It is simply saying that people like to live within walking distance of stores. To them, high gas is no consideration. In conclusion, to the claim that rising gas prices make California healthier economically and environmentally, 1, the advocate claim that high gas prices protect the environment and natural resources. This is inadequate because the source of the data fails to include that all possible producers of carbon emissions. This omission makes the validity of the data questionable. 2nd, high gas prices help our national economy and online economy. This is as well as inadequate because it relies heavily on the idea that renewable fuels, which are still in development, are not fully accessible to solve our problems. And 3rd, the advocate claim that high gas prices help our local economy and communities. This as well is not valid claim either because the people will travel necessary distance to receive the goods they need regardless of the distance, as well as the claim that housing is a factor in limiting people's driving. This data was from early 2008 and is irrelevant in today's environment. Thank you.
All right, the structure is fine. You label the main point and the secondary claims in a preview. You signpost as you're getting to the first point. Your analysis of evidence on that first point is kind of interesting, this notion that public transportation changes are not accounted for. Again, I'm not sure if that's the evidence that the advocate presented, or if that's a presupposition on your part. There's no demonstration that the evidence didn't do that. I think it's an interesting press, but you don't have any data to suggest that it would alter those that relationship any. And in fact, if public transportation did increase, since people are, you got 100 people out of their cars and now on a bus, it would still seem to stand to reason that there would be less of the carbon emissions that we appear to be worried about. So I think you're making an interesting argument here, but it needs to be backed up by something. And then you use the argument to kind of make a broad generalization about the researchers, which I think maybe is going overboard on the attack. You've got a legitimate criticism that you want to make, that's fine, but I think it's a little broad to then say, and so you can't trust anything that these folks are saying. I think that's a little iffy. The hybrid cost issue, I think, is explained pretty well. This is one point where you had some data that applied to the argument directly, and I thought you explained that okay. The transition to the second point is pretty clear. Your explanation about how the foreign oil affects the economy locally is not as clear as it needs to be, and the contrast to the advocate's position as a result is not as clear as it needs to be. You do label the third point pretty clearly. The idea about it being a choice, it's your assertion that the choice is not affected by gas prices. You've just taken a literal interpretation of what the advocate said. I think this would be a good place for some counter evidence on those particular points. I like the summary arguments that you had. Your argument got quieter and quieter and quieter as you went along. You seemed a little bit less and less certain as you were going on and did a little bit more reading. I thought you started off pretty well, but it just seemed like as you got into issues that either you didn't have information on or you're doing a press, you felt you came across as a little bit less certain, and I think you want to be more emphatic about some of those points. All right, thank you.